Well, good morning, everybody. This is Pastor Matt, and this is the Master Pat channel. Coming at you live here. This is Sunday after Easter week. Looking pretty good. It's looking like it's going to be a beautiful day so far, anyway. And we're continuing on with our book study of Revelation chapter 2 and 3. Going to open up this week. It's going to be just exciting in the sense we also have several baptisms this morning. At least 4, maybe 5. So we'll see. And who knows what God can do, or who knows what God's going to do. So anyway, just a bit of an update. We got just pretty exciting stuff continuing to go on here at Redwood Christian Church. And it's cool to see what God's been doing. And as we're going into to today's text, going into the church in our 7 letters to 7 churches, this one's titled Trouble, and it's covering the church of Smyrna, which is in Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. So it's a rather short section. But today I just want to, as quickly as possible, kind of move through this. And I want to share a bit of a story when I was in the Navy in boot camp, and talking about trouble, coming in from a text where it says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." So a lot of times we kind of get into these modes of, I think the reality is in a lot of people's lives is they don't like to be tested. They don't like to be put on trial, so to speak, or meet trials of various kinds, as the half-brother of Jesus speaks here in James. "For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And steadfastness, having its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." So there is some intentionality but there's some intention that, not some even, that there's a large intention of trial is a normative part of following Christ. I think a lot of people want to just talk about the rescue side of it, but even in a rescue, you think about like going through things to end it at some other far off location that you're looking at achieving as a follower of Christ, or in your personal life, maybe it's a workout goal, maybe it's financial, I don't know what it is. But in the general sense, and I'm not really talking about those things to sermonize some of that idea, but the idea is that we will experience trial in the production of complete pictures. So I start my sermon off this morning with this idea, this story. I'm doing this kind of out of order. So the story comes first in the sermon, and then that piece from James, and then it moves into the rest of the message for Smyrna. Is a story when I was in boot camp back in, this would have probably been like September, October, actually probably October of 1999. I quickly approached the final PT section of boot camp, and I was approaching this final section in this final test, and our division had been doing really well in boot camp, and I came up to it. I did my push-ups and my sit-ups. You had to do so many. I think it was 60 and 80. So 60 push-ups, 80 sit-ups in 2 minutes each. So you have 2 minutes to accomplish those goals. And I did that, and then I hit the run, and the run was 1.5 miles in 12 minutes back then. I don't know what it is today. I didn't look that up. Doesn't matter. But the point was I did this 1.5 mile run in 12 minutes, and I was coming around to the final turn, the final lap, and there was this big clock up on the right wall. And I remember looking up at the clock, and it's saying 11 minutes, 30 seconds. And so judging, for those of you who are runners, you obviously know that I'm not the greatest lap time person to do 6 laps. So it'd take me 11 minutes and 30 seconds to accomplish, basically 5 of the 6 laps. So not a fast runner. So I start pushing. And I start pushing to a point where, as I'm rounding the second turn in the final lap, I threw up all over the inside of the track, in the inner portion of the track. And it was an indoor track, so it was glorious. So it was definitely glorious, I guess, in that sense. Anyway, so I finished my run. I just yak all over the inside of, not on the track itself, but on the inside, and I just finished my run. I push even harder to accomplish what I think I'm going to pass my run. And by the time I come across and I finish my lap, I don't know whether or not I've accomplished the time or not. And so I immediately go and grab a mop and a mop bucket, and I go clean up my mess. And then I go out, I run and catch up with my division, and I find out pretty quickly that I failed the run. I came and I failed the test. 12 minutes and 15 seconds. I did not accomplish the goal I had went out for. It was a pretty hard lesson. I remember getting chewed out by my drill instructor, or my, what we call in the Navy is recruit division or recruit drill commander, something like RDC. And so anyway, go through all that process, and it was a pretty low point in my boot camp experience, right? It was a point of boot camp that I just remember I failed. And what was worse about it is because we had done so well in every other facet of testing throughout boot camp, we were up for what's called the Battle Excellence flag, which would have been the only flag that we didn't end up getting because guess what? I failed. So I alone stood in the way of my division getting the Battle Excellence flag. And I'll come back to that in a moment, because yes, I messed up. Yes, there was trouble, and I didn't succeed according to the trouble that existed. But coming down to this is coming back to this idea that through various trials of all kinds, that we become complete, perfect, complete, lacking in nothing. That what we're looking forward to do is become something that we are not today. To the church in the angel to the, and this is, Revelation 2 verse 8, Jesus says this, and to the angel of the church in Smyrna write the words of the first and last, who died and came back to life. I know your tribulation, which is a word for trouble, and your poverty, but you are not rich, and the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan, are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, and that you may be tested, which is the same word as trial. Tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death. So we could, I don't want to spend a lot of time on Smyrna. Just know that there was trouble in Smyrna, that the synagogue of Satan was most likely Jews who were fallen into worshiping Caesar. And again, I'm not even really going to bring that up in today's sermon, because you can go and do your own research on that. I think the larger general point of what we're to look at really comes down to around the phrase here. It says, do not fear what you were about to suffer. Now, if Ephesus was true that they had thrown out their first love, right, which is simply the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross that was for them and for everybody else, right? That was abandoning their allegiance to Christ, you could say, abandoning it's a larger concept. Also, what's true then for Ephesus, and also then becomes true in Smyrna, is not abandoning your first love, but additionally not losing faith in the face of trial. Because again, you come down to this, be faithful unto death, which is not to imply that some of you are going to die. Though, it says some of you are going to be thrown into prison, that you may be tested. And for 10 days, you will have trouble or tribulation. Be faithful unto death. So essentially what Jesus is saying to the church in Smyrna, or to Christians in Smyrna, or Christians worldwide, or Christians today who are experiencing any trial or frustration, pressure, maybe they're getting thrown in jail and they're overseas somewhere, not here in America or something like that. But we get into these levels where people start to operate and think that faith and relationship with Jesus Christ is without trouble. And Jesus is saying, no, you are going to face trouble. To the church in Smyrna directly, some of you are going to be thrown into prison for 10 days. You're going to be you're going to have tribulation, but be faithful, not whether you die or you live, be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. And again in verse 11, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. And even in that phrase, that last phrase, I'm highlighting it right now, because this is important. The one who conquers, he will not be hurt by the second death. And the point of what does conquering look like is to reach the finish line according to how Jesus has called us to reach the finish line, covered in his blood, right? Not covered in our own works and our own efforts, though our efforts and works are produced by the faith that we have, the relationship with Jesus Christ that we have, salvation. It will be tested, and as James again was saying earlier, the half-brother of Jesus, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Why? Conquering is directly tied to not fearing tribulation or trouble, or those who bring you trouble. This will be true. Those of you who decide to make Jesus Christ the Lord of your life and be baptized in these things, do not expect to also go through that without facing some type of trouble. Right? These people in Smyrna or in Ephesus or in Pergamum or in Thyatira or in, Laodicea, Sardis, like all these different places that are in Macedonia that we're talking about to modern day Turkey, right? As we're looking at them, as they chose, like in Ephesus, as they chose to make Jesus Christ the Lord of their life, and they chose to actually pursue Christ, it came with tribulation, right? It came with Demetrius the silversmith. It came with other people all across Asia Minor, becoming detested by Jesus Christ because of Jesus in them was producing good work, right? And so, again, I'm trying to keep this about 15 minutes today because my oldest told me I would get more likes, more follows. I don't really care necessarily, but I'm willing to try it. Because the whole point is what we experience, we should also understand when we follow what Christ says, that we will most definitely face tribulation of some kind. As I've always said here and elsewhere, most of you guys who have followed me for a long time or been my friends, more importantly, for a long time, you can't punch the devil in the face without expecting to get punched back. You can't punch without counterpunch, right? Like playing chess, you won't make a move without the enemy making a move too. Using whatever analogy you want in that scenario. But when we choose to follow Christ, trouble is usually accompanied with following Christ. So when you choose to make Jesus Christ the Lord of your life and be baptized, as some of you are today, if you watch this video, right? You are choosing to follow Christ, which means you are choosing to make yourself an enemy of the world, which means you are choosing that as you follow out of baptism, expect, and even coming to baptism, you may have already experienced tribulation. You may have experienced a day that you didn't even think would happen. You were fighting, or there was issues in your family, stuff that just comes out of nowhere, and that may come all the way up to that, because what's going to change in your life is massively important. And then from that, you will additionally experience some tribulation. But be faithful unto death, regardless of what trial you face, right? Be faithful unto death. Why? Because we should not fear the second death as those who don't have Christ. Again, this comes from the book of, I believe it was Matthew. For some reason, I didn't write it down, but it says, "What I tell you in the dark, say in the light." This is Jesus talking to his disciples. "And what you hear whispered, proclaim to on the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not two," and I'm not going to bring that up, but Jesus is speaking rather robustly that we follow God regardless of what man may do to us. regardless of what the world may say, or regardless of what people might do, that we must follow Christ. So many people want, I'm going over 15 minutes, I don't even care, right? So many people want us to move the goal line of the gospel to the sinner, right? Or on the other side, they want us to take the goal line from the sinner where it is, Jesus is the goal line, and they want us to move it away from them. I mean, predominantly, we see that more this movement, bringing the goal line of Christ to the sinner. But we must approach Christ. Christ changes us, and we move forward in Christ. But moving this goal line isn't going to accomplish anything. Again, just constantly paying for your kids' problems or solving your kids' problem is never going to do what you're looking to. And because I want to finish my story, there's a purpose in the process of what it is that we go through. According to what Jesus is saying, the purpose in the process is to face the trial, according to what James says, right? That we know that those who conquer will get the crown of life. That is a posthumous thing. In death, we will receive a crown of eternal life and be with Jesus. And to finish my story from earlier, it was simply this. I faced a choice. I could get put into, I can't use the phrase we actually used in the military for this group, but I could get moved into a division that was meant for those who had failed, right? Or I could approach a second chance to actually accomplish the mission at hand, which was to pass the run in under 12 minutes, or 12 minutes or under. I mean, you could hit 12 minutes, right? That was the cutoff. So I spent the next week, I think it was, just doing as many push-ups and sit-ups as possible, just killing myself to be prepared for the next test, to be prepared for the next trial that I was going to face. And there was tribulation in it because I had failed my division. I had failed that we were not going to get that battle excellence flag. However, I still had a mission to accomplish, to finish boot camp. And so I just pushed and pushed and pushed, and I strived. And guess what? I did 1.5 miles in 6 minutes. No, I'm joking. Definitely wasn't 6 minutes. I did 1.5 miles because I'm not a fast runner. I've never been a good runner. Never will be, probably. In 11 minutes and 50 seconds. So I shaved off 25 seconds of my time. I did not eat a bunch of rice before the test, which helped probably, but I was able to shave off 25 seconds of my time. And I was able to accomplish the run. I was able to finish the race and graduate with my brothers and sisters. Well, my division was all male, but I was able to finish with my brothers. And what a beautiful picture of what Jesus is trying to say here, that fear not those who only kill the body, but fear God who can kill the body and the soul in the second death. There is a day of judgment coming, and the reality is we must approach Christ, not the world, and not move the goal line around. That Jesus is our fixation. He is the apex of what we are accomplishing as Christians. And we are to pursue Him. And in pursuing Him, we will face trials. So what about you? What about us? What situations are you facing right now? What tests are you going through? And how can you approach it in a way that the Scriptures speak? Again, maybe whatever it is just simply the temptation, the trial to say nothing when you should say something. Right? Then maybe the temptation trial is that you're going to lose relationships with people and things like that. I don't know what those things are, right? But God has you going through what you are going through so that you may be faithful, because he who is faithful with little will be granted much. And so as we're coming down to, again, this is going about 5 minutes over, and my desire is to see every single one of us, and this is one of our challenges this week, and maybe I'll put that up here on the screen, somehow. It says, I commit to be bold in my faith, sharing Jesus and not only how I speak, but how I walk, to be more loving and speak more boldly about Jesus Christ and the salvation that I've been given. That's what I'm going to leave with, that one challenge. If you're here, you'll see that we have a couple others. Those are mostly going to be easy. But, I want to be baptized and to meet about giving my life to Jesus Christ, or I'd like to commit praying that somebody, whoever that is, would know Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So until next time, this is Pastor Matt, and this is the Master Pat channel. God bless, and keep going after it.